Hey everyone, it's the Human Factors Cast, episode 195 pre-show. If you're new here, my name is Nick Roome, and with me today is going to be Frank Lacson over there. Hey Frank.
Hey, how are you doing today?
Hey man, I'm good. It's good to see you again.
Yeah, glad to be here.
Yeah, man. So last time you were on the show, we were not doing a pre-show. Now we're doing a pre-show where we are streaming on a couple different websites. We're testing some things out. So this will be fun. We're testing out new software today. And it'll be interesting to see how this goes. But for now, what we usually do in our pre-show is we kind of sit here and we put together the show notes and we just kind of talk about life. And then we'll do the show, and then we have a quick post show afterwards. So welcome everyone. We're streaming on a couple new platforms. So if you're new here, welcome. Like I said, actually, this is 196. I said 195. Oops. What I said everything as. I said 195 or 196. No, 196. We're good. All right. How are you, Frank? It's been a minute. Last time we had you on was January, right? Right before the GameStop craze. And the reason I know that is because you and I were both on that train.
Allegedly.
Maybe. Who knows?
Maybe. Yeah, it's a lot has happened since then. We had that GameStop and great episode, by the way. Listen to that. Really interesting human psychology kind of thing. Might be happening again. Who knows? And I think we talked about last time the vaccine supply chain. So really good news with the Johnson & Johnson one, and it's going to be really interesting how the different ones start getting distributed across the various populations.
Yeah, that's a great follow-up to that story because I had forgotten what topic we had actually talked about on that show. Yeah. So great. Yeah. No, it's the Johnson & Johnson news is great. And they said the other day, this administration said that we would have a vaccine in everybody's arm by end of May. So that's really exciting. So really quick, as we're here in the pre-show, we do every week have our patrons choose the news. And as you can see by the title of this episode here, it's Google improving the virtual classroom. So that's the story that we're talking about today. We're not talking about it quite yet. Right now, we're putting together a little blurb so we can read it on the show. But that is the story. Hopefully you'll have something to say about this, Frank. I didn't check with you beforehand.
Oh, yeah, I think so.
Good.
Really interesting coincidence as we started talking about the article here.
Yeah, let's see here. So I'm just going to pull out the notes. Got anything interesting going on in your world right now, Frank?
Oh, actually, yeah. I just saw it was a Naval UX Day, and it was a one-day workshop that was held by so many name changes that happen in the Navy, but NIWC Pacific, it's kind of the local government lab out there, introducing user experience to the entire Navy community. So it's really interesting to see the differences between user experience and human factors and all the different fields. So any positive news and outreach is great. So there's a lot of great feedback, a lot of great talks, and I think it's going to be some great times ahead for the user experience in the human factors community.
Yeah, any highlights from that? You and I both attended, so I'm like fishing here. But any highlights from that for you?
For me, I think the big thing that's starting to happen is a lot of these different disciplines, UX, human factors, start coming out. There's a lot of communication that's needed to kind of set the boundaries of what each group does. And so I think that was one of the big discussion points in one of the panels, is kind of getting the word out to different program managers and other stakeholders to kind of showcase the branding of what we do.
Yeah, I always find that the whole evangelizing human factors is always something really hard to do for us in this field, is because it's always just no one knows what we do. And so,
what do you say you do here?
Yeah, exactly. Right. What is it exactly that you're doing? Oh gosh, sorry. I got some. Wow, that's some crazy delay there. Yeah, it's kind of fun to explain what we do. The elevator speech. What is your elevator speech, Frank?
Oh,
for human factors.
Oh, that's a good one. I think it depends on what baseline knowledge people have.
Okay, let's make this easier then. What if you have let's say you know that this person has no idea about the field of human factors, no basis. You have no real understanding of this person's background. What do you say to someone who doesn't know about human factors?
Okay. Yeah. So what human factors, if I were to explain it to, say, someone on the street or at a cocktail party, social distancing, of course, is that human factors deals with the fit between humans and the technology. And a lot of the folks that work on technology these days, a lot of systems engineers and software engineers, well-meaning folks, build the systems based on objectives that fit their leadership's needs. Usually, cost, making things as cheap as possible, schedule as fast as possible, especially in the marketplace, and a minimum level of performance. And so for the human factors professional, we tend to focus on the performance, namely human performance, and focusing on the capabilities and limitations of the human is almost kind of part of this system. So kind of constraining the technology to fit the system. You'll see this in a lot of technologies that are designed well, almost so well that you don't need any training or any kind of follow up on it. It almost seems intuitive is a word that tends to be used a lot for systems that use good human factors.
I don't like the word intuitive.
Yeah, that's why I paused.
It's always so frustrating to me when when you get a user that says this interface isn't intuitive, and it's your job to go, what isn't intuitive about this interface to you? Like what would you say? You know. Yeah, that's good. I'm moving on to show notes here because so we're slated to go on at 5. We're Pacific time over here, and so I want to make sure that these show notes are good. So Frank, I'm going to start pulling out some Reddit posts this week. Actually, we do have a weekly Q&A with our patrons. I'm going to check there first, but then I'm going to check. I'm going to check over Reddit to see if there's anything fun that we can pull in to talk about. We can talk about that, but I want to make sure, since you will be reading the story tonight, you can see our, let's see here, under the story, kind of where I'm at in the show notes there. We're not showing the show notes live, but Frank, you can see them. You see that? The the highlighted number there.
Oh, okay. Bulk of these updates. Yeah.
Let's see. So I'm getting rid of all that. No. This highlighted number right above that. That's what you're going to be reading. So
okay.
What I want you to do is I want you to go through this while I'm pulling out Reddit threads. And I want you to refine this as if this is your script. You're going to read this. And by the way, anyone watching, this is the dirtiest version of the podcast that you'll find because we are literally putting together the pieces as we're talking. And so you get all the nitty gritty. You get me and Frank here sitting talking about the show notes. We're putting the show together. This is the extra stuff that you don't see normally, but we wanted to broadcast it. So yeah, I want you to, this is your script. So you're going to be reading this during the news. I want to make sure that this is, you're good with this. So while you're doing that, I'm going to go over to, let's see here. We're going to check out the Patreon page first. Patrons get a front of the line pass to Q&A stuff. So we're checking over here on our weekly Q&A thread. let's see, view it. I don't know if we had any comments. I don't. Okay, so we got no comments there. That's okay. It is something that we do weekly just in case. And now I am going to check out the other side of this. So let's look at Reddit. Wait, am I not signed into the other workspace? Oh, geez. Okay. Well, let me do that really quick because that will help, I think. How we doing over there, Frank? Any problems so far?
Yeah, I'm just looking at the blurb. So, do you think for this thing, can I ask questions here? Is that part of the?
Yeah, as long as it doesn't pull back the curtain too much. Yeah, you're good. What's up?
Okay. What do you think is the age range for this?
Well,
post-secondary, you think?
Oh, for the for the Google
doohickey.
Stuff. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good question. We can, I'm not sure actually. That's a good question. Google has in the roadmap, which we're talking about today, they have several. Let's see here. I'll just do a quick search for age to see if they have anything on there. That's a great question, though. Let's see. Engagement, management, images, languages. No age. No. What other keywords might I look for? Ages. No images. No, I think I think it's all ages, man. I honestly, like the way this has changed so much over the last what year? It's been a year.
A year. Oh my gosh. Oy.
I know that's my banter for tonight. It's been a year in a pandemic.
1 year.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't have an answer to that question. I'm really sorry.
Okay. Yeah, there's an age range where I think it's happening, but I was wondering actually about college age students. Maybe I should have asked that.
I see.
Yeah, because there's a lot of homegrown apps that tend to get used for once you get into the college, like BlackBerry.
Oh, don't even talk to me about BlackBerry right now. It's been a rough week. Yeah, college has a lot of interesting things, and I think they actually talk about integration with other learning suites, don't they? At some point, they talk about, or maybe I'm not sure if this is in place of those other learning suites, or if they're hoping to integrate with them. So I don't know. It's a good question. Let's see here. So we're looking at Reddit. I'm sorry. I got sidetracked. I'm looking at Reddit here for stories for today. So we if you're new here, welcome. I know not to pull back the curtain too much, but over the last week we've seen a large rise in our subscription numbers, and so I'm expecting a lot of people to be new here. If you're new, welcome. We do a weekly segment where we look all over the internet to bring questions that others have and you might have about the field. And many of them are junior questions. Some of them are more experienced questions. And we look all over. User experience subreddit, human factors subreddit are perfect places where we go to kind of look for these types of questions. So Frank, how you doing on that script? I want to read off a couple of these to see if this is something that you want to talk about on the show. I want your approval too, if you feel like you have enough to talk about this.
Yeah, go ahead. Go. So you got some stuff from Reddit?
I'm looking. I don't know if this is going to be a good choice here. Participants not in your demographic. Does your research always have to be from a target demographic? Isn't it good to do surveys and usability tests for people who wouldn't use the product? Again, this is kind of a good question. What do you think? Do you think we should tackle this one? So basically, if they can understand with no knowledge on it, isn't that good? And it's like, well, yes, but there's specialized tools and stuff that you test. So I mean, we can talk about it from that perspective. You and I have both worked on very specialized tools, but we also worked on general public domain stuff too. And so, that may be a good question. Thoughts?
Yeah. Let's give it a try.
So we'll do that one. All right. I'll go ahead and snag that and throw it into the show notes there. So let's see. And then let's see what else we got. What if we did? Let's see here. What questions do you ask in an interview? I feel like we tackled that a million times. Let's see here. Oh, okay. This one's. I like this one. Let me know what you think. Question about the ethics of leaving a job after 2 weeks.
Ooh, yeah, that's a fun one.
Yeah. Okay. All right. We'll go ahead and take that one. And I'll grab like maybe one or two more, just so that way we have some in case, some backups there. So let's go ahead and put that one in there. Let's see here. We got, oh geez. Still looking. Design process, building UX in an agency.
So it's just a highlighted section. Is that what?
Yeah, let me go back to the notes here to make sure. Yeah, that'll be what you read. And then everything else here that we have kind of contained within the document is just stuff that we can pull out, fun little tidbits here and there. As we're talking about it, we can pull that type of information in without having to reference the actual document, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. All right. Yeah. Looking through here, what are we at? We're at 48. We got a couple minutes before we go live to do the show. Before we go live, I want to make sure do you have Audacity up and running?
Oh, I need to go set that up, huh? Okay.
Yeah. For anyone wondering why we record with Audacity and YouTube and Twitch and all that stuff, is because we like to have the source audio. So that way, if there's any hiccups in the internet connection, we have the source and we can kind of splice them together at the end and publish it that way.
Yeah, we should be good. Okay.
Cool. Yeah, let me get Audacity up over here. Yeah, got you up and running. All right. Career questions. Oh, okay. So I see user experience. That subreddit has now started doing a monthly career questions and monthly portfolio critique thread. So that might be kind of fun to look for sources there. I'm gonna look. I'm gonna look for the top posts. I just want to see. Oh, this is new. I'm gonna look for some of the top posts here. Getting close second in hiring interviews. Oh, man. Posting this on behalf of a friend, content writing, marketing, PR role. Interested in making a switch to UX. I used to work as an environment artist in video games. Oh. Let's see. I'm not finding anything great in there. Large large hands, proper input device. Have you ever done a case study? Like a proper case study?
Depends how you define proper.
Yeah. Well,
you've done like one slider, a couple sliders, but not like a double.
Yeah, this question here is, how in depth should my case studies be?
Don't we have a slogan that we use at the end of the show for that?
Yeah, we do. You're right. And that's absolutely, it could be the answer, but if we want to go that route, we can. I'm just looking for other stuff to talk about. But yes, we do have a slogan at the end of the show that definitely defines what we do or when to do it.
Well, that's an awfully open-ended question. I mean, usually when there should be a baseline of something to ask. Level of depth for a case study, and then one can ask that question.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
I
think
that's what I would say if I was on that Reddit.
There's some there's some context here. Research heavy case study. Don't know how much information to put in there. Branding themselves as a researcher, so I want to make sure employees know that I know my stuff. Help. We'll skip it. Let's see here. What else do we got? How to get what you want. Well, if we knew that, then yeah. Dealing. Oh, here's a good one. I like this one. I like this one a lot. What do you think about this one? Dealing with resistance to your design recommendations and user experience data.
That's a great one. Yeah.
All right.
That's a great one. That was something actually I had to talk to someone about that today.
Oh, that's fresh in your mind. We'll take that. Let's do it.
That's a fresh one.
Go ahead and take that one, and we'll throw it in there. And I think we're good to go. We got 53 on the clock. There's some fun stuff going on behind that door. Let's go ahead and bump this down a little. That's the background noise. You hear any background noise over there, Frank?
A little bit.
All right.
Yeah.
The joys of doing podcasting at home. All right. Let's see here. What do we have going on? Yeah. Let's check this out. So if you are watching and want to interact with the show, we have a couple ways you can do that. You can write us in chat, and we may take your question for the show. We may take your question for the pre-show or the after show. Just kind of depends. There it is. Just kind of depends. Yeah. So I am pretty good over here. Wondering if there's anything else we can do. So last week, Frank, Blake had his little lights on behind him, and it looked like an OnlyFans setup. It's like, the purple mood lighting.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do I need to?
Yeah. Do you? Well, that's what I was asking. Is, do you have any purple lights that you could put up behind you?
Oh, I just put away the holiday lights. Yeah, that was my backlog.
Shucks. All right. Well, let's see here. All right. So I think at this point, we're just about ready to go. We got 5 minutes until showtime. Oh, banter. Do you have anything for banter? I know you talked about UX Day for the Navy here and the pre-show. Do you have anything else that's kind of fun going on that you want to talk about? Like mine's going to be about 1 year in a pandemic, and also a little sneak peek of what's coming up for the podcast. But yeah, I don't know. Do you have anything fun?
I could talk about the car buying experience. I don't know if that's fun. That might. Yeah, why not?
Okay, yeah.
Why not? Yeah, because it's got some neat things on total life cycle costs. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. That is a good one. All right. I'm going to look just for one more Reddit, just in case we need it.
One more.
Well, you can tell my son has got some rhythm back there. He's just banging the doors. The new neighbors must love us. All right, let's see here. Realized the message by a bot. Okay, hey, how do you feel about getting messaged by a bot after clicking an ad?
Like a text, or
let's see here. I realize I find it so annoying to be messaged by a bot after clicking an ad. I'd imagine like clicking out of an ad, right? Like, you know, the user experience of 2021 now, I guess, where you have to accept cookies and all that stuff.
Yeah. Yikes.
Yeah, I don't know, man. All right.
Kind of almost bring up some dark UX kind of things.
Yeah.
Have you heard about that?
Yeah, the dark UX patterns. How management biometrics leads us astray. How to display data. Well, that's your job. Let's see. Career flexibility, work-life balance. I think we talked about this one last time on the show. Never mind. Okay. So I think we're caught up on potential. Yeah, I think we're caught up on potential. What's the word I'm looking for? Stories that we can talk about in the in that it came from section. Yeah. All right. With that, I think it is 2 minutes to showtime. Frank, are you ready to go?
Yeah. Do I? So when do I press the Audacity button? Is that?
So when the countdown, so you'll see the countdown. We're gonna do a quick countdown here on the show. Actually, you know what? As soon as the countdown goes, just press it, and then we'll kind of sit here in silence for a second, and then everyone who's watching will see the countdown. I think we'll go with like 30 seconds or something. We'll see what's going on. Do they have a 30-second? Yeah, they have a 30-second one. We'll do that one. And then yeah, just as soon as that pops up, just go ahead and hit that button, and then we'll get started. So if you're all good, I'm gonna hit this button, and then when we come back, we'll start the show. What do you think?
Sounds great.
All right, let me kill this, and then we're gonna go ahead and press this button. We'll be back in 30 seconds. Hey everyone, it is episode 196. Today is March 4th, 2021, and this is Human Factors Cast. Today is the only day of the year where it's actually also a command, March 4th. I'm your host, Nick Roome. I'm joined today by Mr. Frank Lacson over there. Hey, Frank, how are you?
Hey, doing great today. Thanks for being on.
Thank you for being on. Got him. All right. Hey, we got a great show for you today. We're going to be taking some questions from the community. We're going to be taking a look at how Google has rolling out a new slew of upgrades for improving their virtual classrooms. Yeah, we got some fun stuff going on. If you are listening to this, that means you are subscribed to our podcast. Thank you for doing that. We are on YouTube now. Again, we are. You can find us there. We're slowly spreading out into more streaming services. And we do have some really exciting things here on the horizon, but I'll tease those in a minute. Frank, I got to know what's going on with you, because last we spoke, it was back in January. We kind of talked about this a little bit in the pre-show, but it was January, and the whole GameStop thing was happening. So what's been going on with you, man?
Oh, thanks for asking. Yeah, I believe last time I was on in January, we talked a little bit about the supply chain potential problems that happen for vaccines. Looks like based on the Johnson & Johnson vaccine being available, it looks like the supply chain, some of those problems have been alleviated a little bit. It looks like a lot of folks that were originally delayed in terms of getting vaccinated are getting vaccinated early.
Yeah, and that's great. The delays are being getting rid of, and then there's also the whole being moved everything up to the end of May for everyone getting a shot in their arm. And that's great. That's great news. But you were mentioning to me before the show that you had some experience with a car buying process.
Oh,
to talk about.
Yeah. Thanks for asking about that. Yeah. So I've had this car for a long time. It's a 2002, so it's about time. And I think if it weren't for the pandemic situation, I probably would have put a lot more miles on it. So recently, I'd looked for car buying experience. Just went to a couple of dealers, researched a few cars, went online, and noticed that the amount of experience, the user experience of going to each of these places is different. I'm not going to say which one is better for compared to a dealership versus one of those sites, but they're just different. So for someone that's looking for a car, trying to get more exploratory about different makes and models, a dealership is a decent place to go in terms of being able to actually test drive a car, see what it is, get some information about it. But what's been interesting with a lot of the information available online, and folks maybe having some brand loyalty to the cars, some of these online places like a Carvana or even a CarMax provide a lot more streamlined experience. And that goes with the price negotiations and what bells and whistles get added to the cars. So there's really interesting life cycle costs. Where you go in the car dealership, you might be able to get a little bit of a discount, but you're going to spend some more time, and there might be some more unanticipated costs. But when you go to something like Carvana or CarMax, that cost is kind of rolled up front. So it looks like a little bit of a sticker shock. Things might seem a little more expensive, but depending on what kind of consumer one actually is saving money and time by choosing one of those. So that was an interesting experience, and just kind of noticing the human psychology of the different places and what they offer.
Now, what kind of hidden fees might you expect that are rolled into the like CarMax or Carvana that you mentioned, that are separate with like the dealerships?
There's actually very few hidden fees with the CarMax Carvana. Things are very much upfront because the usual fees of tax, title, and license, those are pretty much set. But then after that it's pretty much that's the price you pay, at least on the sticker.
Right, and so those things are kind of withheld from the dealership, and they kind of get you with some added cost there.
Yeah, for most things, and I know you did a show on some of the GameStop and some kind of financial things, and once consumer gets to a monthly payment, that's where a lot of opportunity to hide costs comes into play. Instead of sticking of one set price, now you're dividing something by 36 or 50, 60, and now it's like, oh, it's just a couple bucks a month, but once you add that up, you're like, wait a second, some of these numbers are adding a little higher than expected.
Yeah, and on top of that, you got like interest and stuff too, which I'm 2 payments away from paying off my car, and I'm very excited about
Oh
that.
yeah, congratulations! Yeah, yeah. So
It'll be a very good day when that happens. Yeah, well, that's cool, man. Well, I am glad that you are thinking about human factors in your everyday life. Not that you wouldn't, but to just have those types of experiences where, like it is user friendly to have all that stuff just right up front for you, where you don't have to worry about other stuff. That's kind of cool.
yeah, what's going on with you lately?
Well, I kind of alluded to it a little earlier, but man, we have been, I guess, next week is like 1 year in a pandemic. And the way that we do things have changed so dramatically. And it's just like, it's one of those things where I was just reflecting on it. You've seen the memes where it's like, last March and then this March, and it's like it came up on you, and it still feels like last March in some weird way, where we're all still working from home, and or most of us are, and getting out into the world is just really weird. And like, I was telling Blake, I went to the dentist a couple weeks ago, and I had to take my mask off in front of other people that I didn't know, and that was just a surreal experience. Like they'd been vaccinated, no big deal for them, but like it's just this weird social norm that we've slowly gotten used to over the course of the last year, that just it's kind of crazy to think about where we use what we used to do. And like, wow, we used to breathe next to other people. That's kind of weird, right? Hey, remember those things called offices where everyone kind of got together in one building and did work? That was weird, right?
Yeah, we just kind of just touch the same surfaces and
Yeah,
shake each other hands.
Crazy. Yeah, I just been thinking a lot about that lately, and the pandemic has given me a lot of free time to do things, and one of those is to put some love back into the podcast. And I mentioned a little tease earlier. I'm going to tease it again here. We've been a little coy on social media lately. I don't know if you noticed, we've been posting soon and the date for 2021. And if you just do a couple little quick calculations, this is episode 196, and there's 4 weeks in a month. And so I'll leave it at that. But we got some really exciting things coming up that I'm very excited about. Like, I'm genuinely super excited for. And some of the effort is already underway with some of the putting us back on YouTube, that stuff. But we have a lot of really cool things. It's like I'm looking at this list, and it's at least 10 items long of just fun stuff. So I've been putting a lot of effort into the podcast over the last week. Let's just say that. And it's I can't wait to share it with everyone. I really can't. I think there's going to be a lot of really fun, really neat surprises and fun stuff to do. So that's just a little tease. I see your cursor there, Frank. We are not going to we're not going to talk about any of this. Don't talk about any of that. We're not talking about it.
Ixnay on the talk about the podcast improvements.
Yes. All right. Well, I think it's time that we get into this next part of the show. Yes, it's Human Factors News. This is the part of the show all about, you guessed it, Human Factors News. This is where we talk about everything related to the field of human factors. This could be anything from, we got some medical, privacy, security, robots, whatever it is, you name it. As long as it relates to the field of human factors, it's fair game for us to sit here and talk about. Frank, what do we have up this week?
So this week's article is called about Google releasing a slew of upgrades to improve virtual classrooms. So education, I know it's been a few years since a few of us have been in school, but it's never been dependent on technology as it has been today, especially for high school and middle school students that have started, gosh, like you said, 1 full year of distance learning. A lot of these classrooms have gone virtual, and parents are becoming more involved as educators and teachers, and they've kind of grown familiar with the different video conferencing platforms than ever. So a lot of adjustments that are also happening on the teachers' end that are used to teaching from in-person, kind of teaching to this virtual teaching. And so a lot of teachers have been using what's called Google Classroom. It's a suite of education tools, and there's now going to be new improvements to it to improve the existing made for learning products. It helps the teachers, helps the students and teachers navigate through the online schooling process, and keeps track of everything. So updates are underway for Classroom, this is one of the biggest parts of the suite, as well as some really neat things on the pipeline for student engagement tracking, Google Meet, as well as workspaces. And so the nice thing about these Google products, especially you're talking about enterprise users, is that these updates happen automatically, and it usually requires minimal to no hardware changes as well, which is great for different use different environments or different machines, operating systems. So Google said it'll kind of talk about the impacted institutions, since there's going to be a few changes on the back end to discuss some kind of additional storage options to help get these roll out these changes. So it looks like, gosh, a lot of people are using this Google Classroom. About 170 million students and educators worldwide are using Workspace for education. And so there's also, looks like currently, gosh, a lot of year-to-year growth too, up to 150 million users globally for the Classroom suite itself, up $40 million students from a year ago.
Yeah, so there's a lot here, and they've kind of announced these upgrades in kind of these categories, right? They have Classroom, Google for Education, the student tracking, student engagement tracking. There's Google Meet, Google Classroom integrations. There's Workspace for Education, and a roster sync. And so I figured what we could do is kind of take each of these and just kind of pull out some fun facts for these. Now, you have kind of a unique experience when it comes to Google Classroom. You were telling me that someone uses Google Classroom and you're familiar with it.
Yeah, it's a really interesting coincidence. As we found out about this, talking a little bit about this at the pre-show. Actually, my wife's a teacher, so she teaches online, and she learned to use Google Classroom by herself. She just looked at some YouTube videos, maybe read a couple forums and that kinds of things. Looked at the help and support. But basically, she had to construct one from scratch, and so she uses that every week for her students.
And have you seen the interface, like behind the scenes? Have you seen what it looks like from a classroom instructor's perspective?
Yeah, it's really interesting. There's a lot of reuse that can happen, and that's important for going between year by year, as well as setting up multiple instances of a class. So it's really nice user interface. Like I said, my wife did just learned it on her own, just with a lot of technologies these days, and she was able to kind of set things up and use kind of the familiar user interactions that she uses for her other Google products.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, so that's great that you have that frame of reference, so we can talk about these upgrades in that context. So I just want to go
Yeah.
through some of these. We'll start with Classroom because I think this is where they announced kind of the biggest sweep, and we'll kind of talk about this from a human factors perspective and what this actually means, both for instructors, educators, and for students. So, whoa, dropping stuff all over the place over here. So in terms of Classroom, the Classroom service, I think you mentioned this, as a kind of a dashboard, right, for teachers and students. It's kind of like this learning management system. And so what they've kind of announced is that the Android app will get better offline support. Basically, right now, I guess, as I understand it, the students can't quite, they wouldn't be able to start their work in Google Classroom and then finish it when they're online later, right? And so now they're kind of providing that kind of capability. We're also looking at like drive attachments, Google Drive attachment, review, write assignments without an internet connection, photo uploads are getting improved on the Android app. And they have let's see here. They're allowing edit the assignments whether you're on web, iOS, Android. So basically, it kind of sounds like they're just providing a lot more functionality to the mobile app, right? Which, I mean, is something that we've. I mean, that's kind of great, right? Because now you have sort of this this ability that you didn't have before.
Yeah, and it sounded like early on, a lot of the classes were assignments, were done on the computer itself, and I think a lot of these upgrades, especially going to a more mobile friendly kind of features, will allow students to kind of capture the time that they have, and use that to their advantage. This reminds me of a uh, a project that I used to work on, for a human resources portal, and the intent was to be able to capture spare moments of your day after a busy week or on the job, to kind of chip away at different tasks. So I could see something like this going on, for students. They might not always be at their computer, or they might have some siblings that might share a computer with siblings and parents, so they're able to do some work uh, away from their main device, or just kind of like with gaming, that with the Google Stadia being able to kind of transfer the work between
Pick
devices.
up anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think there's an interesting uh implication for this too, right? Because they've built this in the world of COVID and the world where many students are home learning right now. They're taking classes at home. However, something like this can be very beneficial even outside of the world that we live in today. Think about in a year from now when everyone's going back to college campuses or something like that, where let's say there's a commuter campus and you ride a train or a bus or something to the campus, and you have a couple minutes to type something out on your phone, and you do,
Mhm.
and you kind of have the like you said, those bits and pieces of your day, where this might be a great opportunity for someone to just jump in and at least like, oh, I'm thinking of an outline in my head, and so I'm going to pop in and put my outline in, and then I can fill it in later or
Yeah.
something like that. So yeah, that's a great application. With Classroom too, they've also so that's kind of from like the student side, right? They're providing all that functionality into the app. They're kind of saying, hey, you can do all the stuff that you couldn't before, and now they've also done things for teachers in the classroom as well, right? So they're helping them catch potential plagiarism. They're by these originality reports, and you've seen these in like Blackboard for a while now, or Turnitin, I think, is another one that does this type of thing. But the interesting thing about this is that Google has sort of they have Google Translate, right? And so you have many different languages by which you can check that plagiarism against, right? So
Mhm.
if somebody has translated it from another language and they've just added a couple things to make it flow better in English, then that's something that they can check against. Um, you know, uh, Also from the educator's perspective on the Android app, they can switch between submissions on different students within the app now, and give and share feedback directly from that app as well. It looks like there's going to be some student engagement tracking feature that allows them to display statistics about which students have submitted assignments and which have engaged with the class by commenting on posts. And it looks like there's potential for. We always think about the users of these systems in terms of educators and classroom, but there's a third user that often goes unseen, which is kind of the admin or the maintainers. And so they're also adding the capability to do audit logs, activity logs, to understand what happens when the system fails.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mention administrators and other kinds of maintainers. Uh, where there's certain times of the school year, especially around progress reports and grading, that concentrates a lot of the work. So a teacher not only has to grade everything, they have to submit the grades, make sure they're accurate, and and depending on what kind of systems you use, not so much happening with Google. There's a lot of help and support calls, more than one would think, to kind of get everything all together. And all this support calls are happening at the same time during progress review time, because that's when the grade books are open and a lot of data is being moved around.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's great to see that those types of users are being taken into consideration too. And did you have any other thoughts on the educator stuff? Because I know I kind of like blew through that and went straight to the other user group, but I want to make sure that if you had anything to comment on the educators using this classroom portal, like the plagiarism or the switching between students and looking at the analytics. Did you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, what you mentioned about student engagement tracking, that's actually a very important job in terms of especially online classrooms. When you're teaching in person, you can still kind of get a sense of who's paying attention, who's how things are going, get a feel of how things are going for a class. Much different in a virtual environment. So being able to kind of pick up on some of these trends real time, both provides real time feedback for the educator. Can say, okay, well, maybe we're not getting as many comments, or things are less engagement happening. Let's switch to a different topic. Let's kind of move to different activity. And I can imagine the engagement goes back up. Really interesting about plagiarism. That's been one of the big things, especially for tests, to make sure that the student has their camera on. But there's only so much one can do in terms of kind of preventing plagiarism. So it's really interesting to see how these tools will work out for teachers.
Can I ask you a question? Then this is a little bit of a tangent.
Yeah.
But your wife is an educator. Do you find that rule for keeping your camera on is something that's fairly commonplace among educators?
It's one of those things where I think it's important to get a sense of how the students are doing, and making sure there's connection. What she actually does is she makes, I think it's also her way of taking attendance. So she has folks turn their camera on and give a 1 to 5 grade on how they're doing. And so,
that's interesting.
And I think that's important, especially these days where not as much social connections are happening. So I wonder if that's something that maybe not just her classroom, but other teachers are using that as well.
Yeah, that's interesting. So I don't know. I haven't taken a class in a global pandemic, but I would imagine that, similar to conference calls, for let's say half of last year, I was on conference calls where there was no video. It was just voice, and things seemed to get done just fine. Full disclosure, I worked with you during that time, and working with you is great. So then the other half of last year, or I guess into this year, I've been on video calls where we've shown faces, and I haven't really noticed a large difference between the two. And so I was just wondering, from that context of an educator and from context with the classroom, how does that dynamic change? Because I'd imagine, like you mentioned it in the pre-show. There's a saying that we have on the show. It depends. Where, like, let's say I am one of those students, believe it or not. I'm on a podcast right now, but believe it or not, I was one of those students who very much didn't like the attention to be on them in the classroom. I was a passive learner. I absorbed the information and asked questions to the teacher after the class because I didn't want to look like an idiot. And I can very much see students like myself who would want to abstain from the video. Like, is it required to be on the entire time? I understand it's like a check, and I know we're like way off the rails here. We're talking about Google, but I just have to know. Like,
yeah, I think there's a baseline willingness to have the camera on, and I think teachers kind of know which students are a little bit shy, and so there might be a little bit softer enforcement on those students. But teachers are savvy too, so they probably know which students are the troublemakers, and will be a little bit more strict in terms of that.
Yeah. I guess it's just kind of a gut check, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, especially these days with devices and things. So it's basically making sure that kids aren't opening up their Nintendo Switches.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, could be. I mean, you can learn while playing the Nintendo Switch. I'm just saying.
I learned.
There's meetings that you attend while maybe playing a Nintendo Switch while it's fine. All right, let's get back to this thing because I want to touch base on some of these other ones here. So you have, in terms of the Google for Education Classroom student engagement tracking. We talked a little bit about this up top, but there's kind of like a student information system in the program here. Basically, there's going to be they're going to be integrating with this framework that allows it to connect to other services later this year. So, for example, like a grade export. For this is all kind of another language to me, but it sounds like there's just a larger integration with other services going on. I could say the specific names, but it won't mean anything to me, and I couldn't comment on it. But it sounds like that means that overall there's less data entry. From at least the educator side, they would say this is that from what I understanding from this paragraph here is that they put in an A on the assignment, and they no longer have to put in that A on the overall calculation for the overall grade. It just kind of takes it in and imports it and rolls it up.
Oh, this one's a game changer, actually.
Is it?
So in terms of the Google Classroom itself, there's a lot of Google Forms integration. So if anyone ever created a survey on Google Forms, can kind of create a survey and automatically record the responses and have it export to a spreadsheet. But now with Google Classroom, a survey, you can think of a survey as a quiz, and so a student can take a quiz, get feedback automatically on which items are correct or incorrect, and gets put into a spreadsheet and automatically graded. But without this feature, what a teacher has to do is take that information, manually put it on a piece of paper, or copy it over to the homegrown or to the app or the application that the school uses. So there's a lot of manual entry there, and a lot. Imagine, like we talked about, progress reports and grades being submitted. A lot of it is this validation. It's like, okay, Google Forms graded as a 9 out of 10, so I got to take that, bring it over to the system, looking, checking between screens,
back and forth.
There's
the opportunity for incorrect data entry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's really neat. So there's still going to be validation and checking, but happens in one source, and it's automatically sent to the right places.
Yeah, that's kind of comforting. Knowing that, like, I've had that happen to me before, where I've had a grade that wasn't the same affect my overall score, and I had to go back and investigate like why that was the case. And if you have that traceability, that's one thing that improves on. And I think all this, like I've mentioned it before, but I think all of these improvements that we're talking about here link back to, yes, it's going to help in the immediate future as we're in a COVID world, but as we move into a post-COVID world, there's all this integration and technology that we're talking about here that's going to affect many students in a positive way, and educators too. I keep just saying one, and admins as well while we're at it, right? So it looks like the next bullet point here is Google Meet. And this is something that Blake and I actually used for the show for a while. We would meet on Google, as it was it's kind of like Zoom, but Google's version of Zoom. And it sounds like they are making Google is making some adjustments to kind of make it education focused, right? So they're looking at kind of new management tools for the teachers. So they'll be able to like end meetings for everybody, right? So you're not just sitting on there saying, oh, my teacher sucks after the class is over and your teacher's still sitting there. It's just end everything right there. It looks like they're also going to have the option to mute participants, which I can't believe that wasn't an option before, being able to stop disruptive students, and they'll be able to control when students will be able to unmute themselves. So that's kind of handy, right? Because like, let's say there's a presentation that every professor, every teacher has a different presentation style. So you're talking. Some don't like questions until the end, and some like questions as it's happening. And so, I as an educator, I am one of the ones that tend to like the conversation as it's happening because we can go on tangents. But I also host a podcast, so there's that. But also, there are those that prefer to just talk and say, "Ask me after." And so this gives those educators a way to just mute everybody and say, okay, after I'm done, you can unmute and ask questions. It looks like there's some moderation controls for screen sharing, chat access, and granting access into the meeting, so you won't have any cats coming in to your classroom. And it looks like they'll also be available on mobile devices for teachers in the coming months. So
Oh,
it looks
wow.
like it looks like a really powerful set of tools being added to Google Meet.
And I think it was one of those things where I remember seeing earlier versions of Google Meet, and it never seemed to have caught up to other things like Zoom or Microsoft Teams, or maybe even Slack. And so I wonder if it's just a matter of time, as we're starting to see, for Google to catch up on those different features. Again, there's different priorities, right? In terms of those other tools are funded by their license fees and subscriptions, and Google does too, in a little bit more indirect way. So it's probably just a matter of priorities and growing the user base enough to be able to implement these features. I do like the also being available on mobile devices, and that gets for backup. So it's one of those things where when one is teaching a class on their, say, computer, and something goes wrong with the internet or something, at a key moment, to be able to bring up a phone and maybe take a little bit of hit on the data side, but still keep the class going. Um, and so I think that's very important to kind of for reliability. And like I said, with this students, they may be in different times, or what do you call it, different parts of their day, not accessing the computer. Teachers may have that as well. Maybe there are certain conference calls or kinds of quick check-ins that they can use their mobile phone and be able to meet with students.
Yeah, and so I'm going to jump to the next point because it kind of goes all with this, right? So Google Classroom is actually integrating with Google Meet as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so basically the way this is all going to work is that you're going to have Google Meet is going to pull in that roster information, so it can tell when the teacher's on, and it'll automatically give them like a host status, right? So they can manage the class. And later this year, they're going to add the Meet sessions that are started outside of the classroom, the Google Classroom, right? Will be also able to support multiple hosts. So, like, let's say you have a college professor has a teacher's aide that they could, assign to do all these tasks for them, whatever that is. They'd be able to do that outside of the classroom. And it looks like there's going to be the ability to set up these breakout rooms. And I know this is something that Blake and I talked about on the podcast very early on in the pandemic, was how do you organize these large scale events, or in the case of a classroom, how do you organize sort of these breakout rooms? And this is great for those group exercises that you hate, or at least I hated, right? Get together with your peers and discuss this thing, which usually translated to do the thing for your peers. But anyway, I digress. The idea here is that you'd be able to have those sort of breakout rooms, and presumably you have the ability to kind of get everybody back together at a set time. It looks like there's also some inclusivity here. They're going to be the students will be able to pick skin tones when they use emojis, which seems like it should have been in there from the beginning. I don't use emojis often, but that's a very important thing to have that representation there. So that's great. And then in April, so I guess next month now, it looks like they're adding new settings to that admin console to give school leaders the ability to set policies like who can join calls hosted by their school and whether joining meets from other schools should be allowed. So this kind of gets at that collaboration side. So this is again those admin users that we barely talk about. They're going to have sort of this control on the audit log side. They'll get those as well for all this stuff. This will help them kind of triage any of those issues.
Yeah, it's interesting with the administrator part about external participants' email addresses, parents and other guardians that are starting taking a bigger role in their children's education, being able to be kept in the loop with some of these things, shorten the communication cycle, say for missed assignments, that kind of thing. Let's see So the started outside the classroom, support multiple hosts. I wonder if that's something that is kind of related to kind of like an all hands school assembly. You remember those?
I'd imagine so. Yeah.
Yeah, bring in other speakers and kinds of things, or kind of a more community based kinds of things, a pep rally, that kind of thing. Okay. Yeah, so it's really interesting how everything is integrated together. One of the challenges that educators face is mentioned before, dealing almost in a system of systems, having to do one thing in Google, another thing with the homegrown app, and being able to kind of translate and move things between those reliably. So that should be really interesting as that goes along.
Yeah, we got like two more points that we want to talk about here. So, in terms of workspace for education, looks like they're basically renaming it to integrate with their G Suite for education, right? So, instead of just offering these two options, right, you have Education Fundamentals and Plus. Now they're adding the standard version and a teaching version, or teaching and learning upgrade. Starting next month, for those who already have that G Suite for enterprise and education. There's a lot of names going on here, but the idea here is that they're kind of integrating all these features, and they're coming to this workspace for education, including some of these Meet transcripts and save drafts from Google Forms. So a lot of the stuff that we talked about just seems like it's getting rolled up into this.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds like this whole suite kind of implies that a lot of their file system and working files are kind of under can be under that storage as well. So it's kind of like their shared drive, but on the cloud. And so I see a lot of opportunities in terms of reuse, being able to see transcripts and other kinds of things that maybe previous teachers have used, and maybe a new teacher comes in, being able to see, kind of replicate what previous teachers have done, and then add their personal spin for improvement.
Right. Yeah, and then last but not least here, we have Google Classroom Roster Sync, and this is so they're unlimiting. Looks like they're eliminating the free unlimited storage that it had for qualifying schools and universities. It's grown to serve, according to Google, it's grown to serve more schools and universities each year, and storage consumption has also rapidly accelerated. So it looks like they're going to start charging for that, which is kind of a bummer. But at the same time, all institutions will now get 100 terabytes of pooled cloud storage shared across all their users, which is quite a bit, but not that much when you're thinking about, data storage of video files. And it'll go into effect for existing customers in July next year, and it'll be immediate for those who sign up next year. Users basically, for the bottom line here is that users won't have to do anything for this. And some of these changes that we talked about here are going to be coming up in the coming weeks. And looks like there are, like you said in the blurb here, there's a lot of people that are using this service right now, right? 170 million students and educators worldwide now using this workspace for education. And Classroom serves over 150 million users globally. And that's up basically 110 million from a year ago. So It's quite a bit, right? So these these changes are going to be impactful for a lot of people. And if you're using this, I would love to hear from you. But Frank, any other closing thoughts on this whole Google Education Suite upgrade?
It's really interesting timing for these upgrades, and one would think that, oh well, we're well on our way with vaccinations, and um, students are coming back to school, so this won't be needed as much. But I would argue that this would be needed more than ever. There'll be, I think, a lot of changes that happened during the virtual learning process this past year that'll be retained. And so thinking about this, like the being able to do your work anywhere, I think will stay. Uh, Kind of a loose round where a lot of the benefits of the Google Classroom is actually tracking an individual assignment. And so if you remember when you were a student of making sure that the assignment that you turned in the teacher got back, did you have your name on your paper, all that's in a sense done away. That whole cycle of, oh, I didn't get your assignment, oh yes you did, that's gone, because a teacher can just go on to Google Classrooms, it's there or it's not.
Right.
And so being able to probably keep some of that, I'm sure they'll want to reduce that time as they move on to this. Probably for a foreseeable future, kind of like a mixed learning environment where you have some online, some not, based on personal choices and state mandates.
Yeah, good loose round. All right. Well, I just want to thank all of our patrons this week for selecting the news topic, and thank you to our friends over at Engadget for the article this week. If you want to follow along, we do post the links to our original articles in our Slack as we find them, so you can join us over there for more discussion. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be back to see what's going on in the human factors community right after this. Back. Huge thank you, as always, to our patrons, and especially our honorary Human Factors cast staff, Michelle, Tripp. Patrons like you keep the show running, and thank you all so much for your continued support. We are always updating our Patreon. I'm really excited about where that's at and where it's going. I hinted at some stuff. I'll give you a little tease. We've been doing Human Factors Minute over on our Patreon, and this is something that isn't included in that commercial that you just heard, but we've been doing this Human Factors Minute. Frank, have you listened to any of our Human Factors Minutes?
Yeah, here or there. It's really interesting.
So basically, what they are is it's a quick slice of human factors life, and it's a wide topic. Anyway, my tease: we have planned the next year of Human Factors Minute. So there's going to be content for you for the next year. For all our patrons, they are they're getting this in a weekly dose. So there's every Tuesday they'll get a drop of this, and we have all this stuff planned out. So even if we miss a week, our patrons are not missing a week on Human Factors Minute. With that, if you were to join us on Patreon now, I think there's over like 400 posts on there. There's nearly, I think we're almost at a year of content. So I think we're 53 episodes of Human Factors Minute on there. You and get those instantly if you join us. Anyway, I hate begging for money, so let's stop doing this. And we'll go ahead and get into this next part of the show we like to call It came from Reddit. Yes, this is the part of the show where we search all over the internet to bring you topics the community is talking about. And this could be anything, as long as it relates to the field of human factors and encourages discussion amongst us. And Frank, we have 3 this week. We do look for our patrons. Our patrons are able. We have a weekly Q&A with them. Keeping on with that thread, but no patron questions this week. We also are taking questions from our live chat across all of the streaming services that we are doing that on. So if you want to ask a question, now's the time. And we have a couple up here for you today. The first one here is coming from the user experience subreddit. In fact, all these are from the user experience subreddit. What am I even talking about? And this one's going to be participants not in your demographic. Frank, this one's from the user IDK. What to outs my user? I don't know. Anyway, this one says, does your user research always have to be from a target demographic? Isn't it also good to do surveys and usability tests for people who wouldn't use the product? Because if they can understand with no knowledge on it, isn't that good? Frank, what do you think?
Oh, that's always been that's kind of a key question that's been talked over the years in terms of psychological research. And so there's always a balance between doing research on a more general population where you can get insights that all humans can provide versus one for a target population. And so I think, yes, it is good to do surveys and usability tests for a broad range, but there's practical considerations, right? Being able to run a user in a test costs money, costs time, and it may not get quite the data that one needs. So it depends on the kind of test that's provided. I would ask for maybe more of a middle ground of saying, hey, there's a potential new market that might happen for testing certain folks of the population. And so that might be a good way to kind of frame that question. It says, okay, we're going to have most of our tests on our target demographic, but let's ask for a little bit of exploratory kinds of things that can happen, because you never know what you can find. There might be new insights, new kinds of things from this exploratory testing.
Yeah, I think that's mostly right. I think there's one other kind of nuance that I'd like to throw in there too, and that is the issue with yes, you want it to be used by a novice user versus an expert user, and I think that's the that's the thing that we need to distinguish here, right? Is that there's users that don't use your product, and yes, that's useful in a lot of settings, but there are very specific products for very specific user types. And so if you can grab a novice user of a product, right, someone who's going to be using this in their role on the thing that they're doing, and you can grab their input, that is invaluable, because at least they have the knowledge of the domain that you're looking at, right? And then you can also test users that are experienced in that thing. And so then you get that gamut versus the people that are outside of that gamut and have no idea what you're even looking at. I did a usability test a long time ago on an electrical relay. And my boss at the time, he actually took the thing home and had his kids program an electrical relay. And that's a very specific skill set for a very specific product. And they were able to do it. So that was one thing that we could bring to the table and say, hey, look, it's so easy, a kid could do it. Instead of caveman, so we did that, and that was a very powerful message to say that, hey, look, this product can be used by anyone. And we took the feedback from the 2 user groups that I described, the novice and the expert, and I think that really helped with understanding someone who has that knowledge in the domain but may not necessarily have the experience using those products. Anyway, I think it's a great question. Any other loose rounds on this one?
Yeah, I think it'd be part of just kind of a testing plan, and that would be another piece of advice. Is maybe it's because you want to get a good sample for whatever exploratory tests you want to do, and so that could, if it's a part of a plan in itself, then you can sample different pieces of a target demographic, or expand your targets, if you will.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to get into this next one. How do you feel about ethics, Frank? Want to talk
Oh,
ethics?
yeah. Yeah, that'd be fun.
All right, so this
Yeah,
one
let's
here
do
is also from the user experience subreddit. This is Arcane UX. And this is a question about the ethics of leaving a job after 2 weeks. So they go on to write, currently working full-time UX job. Since working from home, I've had a lot more free time on my hands. I've contacted a local small business owner who I've worked for in the past when I was in college and asked if they'd be interested in me doing some small print-based designs for them, something really easy to do, can do from home and make a little extra money doing it. However, unexpectedly, another opportunity has risen, a senior UX position, something that I'm very interested in and could advance my career, but it might be much more time demanding, and I may not have time to take on this side job. It has been 2 weeks since working for this small business, and if for some reason I got this new job offer, I would have to leave. I feel incredibly bad doing this so early. Would it be ethical for me to leave after 2 weeks? What would you do if you were in my position? Frank?
This is where interesting, where the response to this might have been different before these times. Maybe if you asked a bit over a year ago versus now. And so I think what would you do? I think being honest is the most important thing, and I think there's a lot of ability to be honest in this. If you're looking, said work for the past when they were in college, so there's an existing relationship there, and because by being honest, you might not know how things are, as in maybe because they had a personal relationship with this business owner, maybe that business owner uh, put themselves a little bit on the line to get this person a job, especially in these COVID times. And so that might be something where a discussion that had said, hey, I've got something that may be a little bit higher up on the ladder, a senior UX position. There might be some more benefits. Can we work out an arrangement? Um, I might not have time immediately to work on this, but maybe we can do a contracting or 1099 kind of thing and say, hey, when if you really need something, I can help you out and take the time with that, and we can arrange an hourly rate for that. So I think being honest is will be fine, but if it comes down to it, you want to be careful not to burn any bridges, but still, your career is very important. So if there's something that really gets you to the next level on the career goals that you're seeking, one sometimes has to go for that and kind of be able to mentally and psychologically deal with any kind of potential consequences. But I think people are more understanding these days, so I wouldn't see any wrong with being just completely honest.
Yeah, I mean, look, here's my thoughts on it. It seems to me, by the phrasing of this question, they say, small print designs for them is something really easy to do. You can do it from home and you can make a little extra money doing it. What, how much time demand do you really expect this to take? I mean, is this something that you can organize and put up with a couple weekends of working extra? And like I said, Frank, or like you said, Frank, it's that whole don't burn bridges thing, right? Because I think that's really important. I think a saved relationship with somebody that know and trust can go a long way in the future. And so don't burn that bridge. If you can do both, do both. It sounds like and you also have no idea what this senior UX position is going to be like. For the first week, it's mostly just like onboarding stuff. And most positions that I've ever been in, right? It's like onboarding. So maybe you could go home and do the other work. Like it doesn't seem like one or the other to me. It seems like how can you make it work? And in lieu of that, if you can't make it work, then follow Frank's advice and be honest and upfront with them and see how that works, right? Because if it is a permanent employment thing, then that's a little trickier. But it sounds like it's contract work. I don't know.
Yeah. But by the way it's framed, it could be something that the person can kind of work, like I said, both jobs at the same time, and then when the time comes, have that conversation. Maybe have a friend in place that can help carry on the work. Because I imagine if I was an employer and someone came up to me and said, "Hey, I can't do this anymore, but I have a recommendation on someone that I trust," I'd be like, "Okay, that's fine. We can things can go on and keep a positive business relationship."
Yes, I agree. All right. We got one more here. Let's get into it. This is dealing with resistance to your design recommendations and user data. This is from user Big Old Box of Wires. So this says, "Hi guys, I'm currently user testing an app for a small startup company. I've recently completed my user interviews and user testing, and I'm in the middle of processing my data. However, as I begin talking to discuss my findings with the team, I'm noticing a lot of reluctance in making many significant changes based on the data. I've talked at length with some of the team, and their response seems to be their own justification that the design has to be this way or undermines their core philosophy for the business. The business in question is an app for wine connoisseurs, and the specialist nature of the app means that most participants are only partial fits to the user demographics, being wine enthusiasts, but not exactly wine culture connoisseurs. This seems to be an internal justification for the team to dismiss data that they don't personally agree with. My UX design experience tells me that user demographics and participants don't have to be perfect to get good results for general usability, so I'm at a loss with how to approach this situation. Am I wrong? Is this specialist need for a particular user group going to really color the data so significantly that I should take it into consideration to moderate my final feelings? And if not, how do I execute any meaningful change with a team that is dragging their feet? Thanks, guys." All right, Frank, you take this one.
Oh gosh,
I'll be over here.
This is a tough one. So I see app for a small startup company. So there's a lot of usually for startups, not as much standardization. So there's probably a founder or some kind of core team members that have a thinking of how it goes. I think this interesting thing with the wine connoisseurs versus enthusiasts, not something I'm too familiar with. But it sounds like they are just willing to go for design itself. Have the design come in a certain way. Gosh, this is a tough spot. I think this is kind of a pick your battles kind of situation here, because a lot of it is still as much as you trust your own internal intuitions and the data, it's still predicted. So I'm not sure if it's worth the battle to continue with this right now. And so that's kind of part of the art of our business. There are some battles that you want to fight now, and some battles that you kind of know how they're going to go, but get more data, get more users involved, and let that data, actual usage data, speak for itself.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think we've all kind of worked on teams where we butted head against somebody that had a different idea about what the design should be than you. And, sometimes it's in a similar role as yourself. Sometimes it's another human factors person. Sometimes it's a developer. And in the case of, it sounds like this is a fairly smaller team. And it sounds like, they're the only person that deals with users on that team. And so in that case, it sounds like they're dealing more with like a developer or a designer or something that, that just doesn't jive with. And in that case, it's a unique thing, but I do want to touch on the other part really quick. So if you're dealing with another human factors engineer, that's easy. That's just explain to me why you think it should be a certain way. And let's try to meet in the middle. Most of us are amicable about that type of thing, and you can work it out. The interesting thing comes when you're working with non-human factors people or non-UX people. And so in this case, I would strongly recommend, like Frank said, pick your battles. You don't want to, you're working with these people. You don't want to burn bridges. So that's pulling in from the second question that we had tonight. The number one thing I would recommend for this type of situation is try your best to phrase things or this is kind of like Palpatine level stuff here, but like try to get them to come to the same conclusion that you came to. And that's much harder to do than it is to say. But if you play that game and they come to that conclusion, you're not going to get the glory for coming up with that idea. They will, but at least you know what's coming, what's best for the user, right? If you can say, hey, why are we doing it this way? Is there any other way that we could do it? And don't like point fingers or anything like that. Be very careful with your language. It could serve the user better, and that's ultimately what your goal is, right? So that's kind of where I'm at. All right. Any closing thoughts, Frank?
Yeah, on that one, it kind of goes with the expanding market, right, of the demographic. So today's wine enthusiast might be tomorrow's wine connoisseurs. So there might be still a way out there for expanding the user base. And so I think that might hopefully will get that person on the right track. I'm kind of curious about this app.
Yeah, me too. Maybe we'll look at it after the show. All right. Well, that's going to be it for us today, everyone. Let us know what you guys think of the news stories this week. You can join the discussion on our Slack or follow us on any of our social channels at H Factors Podcast. You can email us, show@humanfactorscast.com. If you like what you want to hear, you want to support the show, there's a couple ways you can do that. One, you can leave us a review on your podcast medium of choice. Those reviews help other people find our show. Two, you can tell a colleague about us. Word of mouth is a wonderful way to spread the word about the show. And three, if you have the financial means and want to support us that way, we have a lot of fees that we're trying to take care of. So there's a Patreon that you can support, and we always make sure Patreon is a priority and that we're giving back to the community that gives to us. So with that, I want to thank Mr. Frank Lacson for being on the show today. Where can our listeners go and find you if they want to talk about Google Classroom?
Oh, available on the Human Factors Cast Slack, as well as LinkedIn.
Great. As for me, I've been your host, Nick Roome. You can find me across social media at Nick_Roome. Thanks again for tuning into Human Factors Cast. Until next time, it depends.
Depends.
All right. So if you want to just go ahead and hit stop on Audacity, this is, I guess, for everyone watching on the stream, this is now the post show. Wait, no, that's pre-show. This is post show. Post show.
I think
this is the post show. Yeah, I had the wrong one up. How do you think that went, Frank? I think that went great.
Yeah, I like the pre-show concept. It was a good way to warm up to it, kind of get into the mode of, okay, here's what's going on, have some light banter to kind of get started and pre-select things. So I really like the pre-show concept, and I hope that's something that you continue doing.
Yeah, I think we will. What do you think about the actual show? How'd that go?
Yeah. Yeah.
Pre-show was great. The actual show.
It's one of those things where I really like the topic, not because my wife's a teacher, but really shows the kind of enterprise nature of some of these things that are going on. A lot of the times we, myself included, like to see the cool technologies and things like this, but these are everyday things that are helping out people, millions of people, and quite rapidly, especially.
Yeah, I thought it was a great show. I had a lot of fun talking about it, and I learned some new things about Google Classroom and remote learning just in general. I mean, it's one thing to like read about it in the news or hear about it, but it's another thing to actually like talk to somebody who deals with it or has somebody close to them that deals with it. Because I was an educator as a grad student, and that was an experience, and things have certainly changed since then. So and I used Blackboard back then to manage the classroom. So it's like, yeah, it's a lot to consider, and it kind of just feels good to know that people are and companies are working to kind of help ease that transition or make it just easier to do that online learning or hybrid learning.
Yeah, when it comes to trying to replicate some of the things that come naturally in the physical environment, like with the breakout rooms, that's a common thing. Okay, kids are going to go to different parts, talk about these kind of things, group projects, and the kind of just being able to almost regardless of what technology you have. Just open up a web browser and still be able to do this thing. I mean, that's pretty impressive these days.
Yeah.
Versus kind of like a specialized license and things like that.
Yeah. So in the post show over the last couple of weeks, we've been putting together the podcast art as kind of like a fun little thing.
Oh,
so
okay.
so you can see here I have up. This was last week, right? We talked about scientists finding a way to talk to dreaming people. So this week, what did we have? We had Google. What is the stream name? I need to look up what the stream name is. I have it somewhere. Google improves virtual classrooms. That's what it is. So we'll go ahead and put that sucker in there. Replace that there. What's your weekend looking like, Frank? Anything fun?
Oh gosh. Well, we had that rain last couple of days. I've been starting to play golf again. One of those things to help me kind of just move around, keep physical kind of activity going. And golf is actually a really great social distancing.
Yeah. Really, you're not standing next to a bunch of people playing golf?
Four at most, but where I hit it,
stuck in the sand trap for hours.
Yeah, in the water. Yeah, my friends don't want to join me in the water.
It looks a little big to me. Let's reduce the size just a tad. Let's see, what do we got here? There we go. That's perfect. All right, look at that padding. I'm a designer now. All right. Well, let's see here. Why don't let's see. Google. We should probably look at Google. Actually, I have the roadmap here. Let's see if there's any interesting images that we can pull from this.
Oh, wow. Can you do the...
What's that?
Almost the roadmap itself. I don't know if that's...
Well, let's see. If there's anything interesting in here that we can pick up, let's use it. So we'll I like this one. Can I reset that and take a screenshot? Let's see here. Yeah, I like that one. Let's do that one. So I am taking a screen grab right now. I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah.
Okay, good. I didn't know if that would come through on stream. All right, so we'll take that. We'll throw that in here. All right, so that's...
Use a green shot? Is that what that is?
That's what, yeah, green shot. Wow, look, I haven't deleted those in a while. All right, so yes, we'll go ahead and put this one here. Yeah, I love green shot. I fancy green shot, as some would say. I think green shot is a great alternative to any of the other snipping tools that you might find. We're just gonna center that like that. How about that? And then we'll delete this little line back here.
Yeah.
Look at that. What's going on?
Oh, you got a little.
Yeah, I see it. I see it. Hold on. We got it. We'll crop the image up to there. Yes, this is it. That's it right there. You can barely even notice it. You won't even notice it on the podcast art. Whatever. All right, so that's one. And then the other half, I think, will be. Oh, it's been a while since I deleted on that side too. Oh no. Oh wait. Now I'm noticing that the color is not quite right. This is what. This is content creator problems. Is that?
Yeah.
No, that's not what I meant to do. We'll take this and we'll bring that down. No, that's not what I... Come on.
Oh, no.
It's doing the thing. We'll do that there. Okay. And then we'll just make sure that's centered. And I think that's good enough. That's good enough for me. Okay. What else? Let's see. Google improves virtual classrooms. Should I do like a... Google logo is pretty
yes,
pretty...
Let's see the G Suite for Education.
Oh, G Suite. Yeah, we could do Google Education. Is there a Google Education? And logo. Let's see here. Google Education logo. Is that Google for Education? Oh yeah, there's a thing.
Oh, yeah, there's.
Yeah, I wonder if we could just snag that. Let's snag that. Let's just do that. Here, we'll take this. We'll copy the image. We'll paste that over here. Oh no. We'll download the PNG then. No. What is this? Okay, it's dumb. Gotta sign up or something for whatever this is. Here, let's do this one. Save image. and we'll do.
Oh wow, there's a lot of really neat things in this Google Classroom.
Yeah, like what?
Teaching resources to empower learning in the classroom, coding and CS, creativity tools, digital learning, literacy, language, arts, and culture. So it kind of helps educators learn things. That's really neat.
Google Education Suite. What is it? Google Education Suite. What do they call it?
Google for try Google
E-Suite for Education.
Yeah, or edu.
Okay, let's
Google Workspace for education.
Oh, Google Workspace. Education workspace. Google Workspace for Education workspace. Oh, geez.
Space.
We kind of talked about this in the show, but man, like what a mess of like just naming conventions. It's so bad.
Yeah,
You know,
so
we did the show and I still have no idea what's what. And what a mess. What a mess. And you know what's weird is that I can't find anything on Google's oh wait, you know what? This will work. Here we go. How about this? Look at that. G Suite for Education.
Boom. Oh, there we go.
Yeah. No, look at that.
It's got all the icons that you need there.
Yeah, all of them. All the icons. We'll go ahead and expand that down just a little bit. And it looks a little big. Do that. And we'll center it. And what I like to do, and this is a very nitnoid thing, I think. So this is the very first one that we started doing these show things on. And what we do is we copy these lines. These are kind of the guidelines. Paste those here. And we'll just make sure that's kind of centered to that.
Oh, that's neat.
And we'll center to that. And then we'll delete. And we will delete. I think that one's pretty well centered, but I feel like it could be better. Wait. Center it to this line at least. You've been keeping up with WandaVision?
No. What's that?
Okay. It's a TV show on Disney Plus. Finale's tomorrow. That's why I ask.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
we've been doing looking at Arrested Development.
Oh yeah. Going back through those.
Yeah, oh yeah. Jennifer, she loves it. It's great. It's great, the jokes that.
Yeah, that show's a good time.
Yeah, it's a nice light show.
Yeah. It's a good one. You into the later seasons yet, or are you still in like the pre-Netflix days?
Yeah, we're on season 5 actually. So
okay.
Getting near the end. Because we watched the Ozarks first.
How's that?
So it's a really interesting, little bit deeper show, a little darker.
Yeah,
compared to rest, but it has the Jason Bateman character. So it's interesting seeing Marty Bird, which is the character in Ozarks, and then you see what's it called, Michael Bluth, but it's like backwards because most people have seen the Arrested Development version,
right?
But as it gets like later seasons, the two characters, it's like late Arrested Development, early Ozark start to kind of blend together certain traits of that character.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, I think that was it for the post show. We usually just do this, and then I'm gonna run and we're gonna get dinner for the family, and that was it. Yeah. So thank you, Frank. I appreciate you stepping in for Blake. He's out sick this week. Hopefully he'll be feeling better next week, but appreciate it. We've been testing the technology on a couple other places tonight, so we've been trying it out on Facebook. We didn't get any chats, but we've been trying this thing called Restream. You can see it up in the top right corner, and it basically takes your stream and posts it on a couple different websites. We're starting small scale, and we're hoping to ramp up here. So yeah, that's what we're doing. So anyway, thank you, Frank. Really appreciate your time, and for for stepping on here and talking human factors and Google Suite for Education, Google virtual classrooms with me. And, we'll catch you next time, buddy. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I'm looking forward to being on here again.
All right. And for everyone watching, that was the post show. That was the show. That was the pre-show. That was everything. You got it all. And we'll be back next week at 4:30 Pacific on Thursday afternoon for another pre-show. We'll see you then. Bye, everyone.
Bye.